Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse on this first Sunday in March 4th, I believe it is, 2018. Want to share with you some of the events that I have run across this week in the world that point us in a direction consistent with what the scriptures teach about end times and so forth. One has to do with the economy, and I've entitled this one, "That's the Economy, Stupid." The Commerce Department is reporting that the first month since the new tax law was signed in December reflected a $30 billion increase in one-time bonuses and a $115.5 billion annualized drop in personalized taxes. Having done my taxes today, I can tell you that it ain't hurting. Real disposable income, apparently, defined as earnings adjusted for taxes and inflation, has advanced at the rate of about 0.6% over the previous month. That doesn't sound like a great deal, but the experts tell us that this is the biggest gain since April of 2015. And the Federal Reserve's preferred price gauge, excluding food and energy, had the biggest monthly increase in a year. I think you can look for the Fed policymakers to raise interest rates this year at least 3 times. First one is expected this month, a little bit later in March. According to the United States Energy Department, U.S. crude oil production shattered a 47-year output record in November and retreated slightly in December as oil production from shale continued to upend global supply patterns. The new record probably will not last. The U.S. government forecasts predict production will hit 11 million barrels per day later this year. There's some new technology for you air travelers. On Tuesday, last week, Miami International Airport celebrated its newly renovated Concourse E federal inspection facility for international travelers. One of its main features is something called passport screening, the use of facial recognition technology to match the documents that the travelers are presenting to the officials. Now, while other airports and airlines are partnering with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Division to test biometric exit screening, that's for departing flights, Miami International has the first facility fully dedicated to biometric entry screening for international arrivals. It seems to me, as I was looking through what I could this week, that there are other airports that do this as well, a couple of them overseas, and there's 2 or 3 here in this country that will start soon to do the same sort of thing. You get off your airplane, as you come into the airport area, you're screened. Your face is screened to see if it matches what they believe are the people who are on that plane. Interesting, isn't it? What is one of the simplest things you can think of that many people just cannot do? Well, apparently it's holding a pencil or a pen and then being able to write with it. In recent years, a number of parents and grandparents have discovered what they consider to be an alarming trend. Children who no longer know how to write in cursive. And the reason for all of this is the Common Core curricula. The newest innovation in education does not emphasize cursive writing. Now, you can say what you want, and it's probably because technology is going to make it all unnecessary one day. I marvel at what we go through when we are paying for things at machines and we have to sign, and you are using a stylus or maybe your own finger. The signature doesn't look at all like yours. Nobody can recognize your signature that way. But thanks to increased attention on this particular subject, many states have implemented laws mandating that cursive be taught in school. I mean, it's different from not being able to write legibly to not being able to hold the pencil and write at all. The Guardian, a publication that I frequent, explains how the children are not coming into school with hand strength and dexterity, at least not what they had 10 years ago. Sally Payne's the head pediatric occupational therapist at the Heart of England Foundation Trust. And she says to be able to grip a pencil and move it, you need strong control of the fine muscles in your fingers. Children need lots of opportunity to develop these skills. You see, it's apparently easier to give a child an iPad than encourage them to do muscle building play like building blocks or cutting and sticking, pasting, pulling toys, ropes, and all those sorts of things that children have always done. And the result here is that children are not developing the underlying foundational skills they need to grip and hold a pencil. It's not all physical, however. The lack of strength has a number of mental implications as well. Research shows that writing by hand improves both a student's critical thinking skills as well as memory ability. The fact is that children are mentally capable of a great deal more than we are giving them credit for. But the capacity, the capability that they have is being hindered because we refuse to nurture it in the correct way. Early 20th century educator Charlotte Mason touched on this issue when she noted how that many tech executives are recognizing that we need to get our children away from the technology as much as possible if we want them to maximize their physical and mental capacity in life. That's what Grandma's saying. What does she know? There was a major oops in the news this week. It's not new to the folks who've been looking at it and analyzing it for the last decade or so. But the Israel Antiquities Authority announced this week that a 2,700-year-old papyrus references Jerusalem. It is the oldest non-biblical Hebrew document in captivity that mentions the city of Jerusalem. It was apparently stolen originally by what are called antiquities thieves, and it shows two lines, clear lines of writing. Interpreted, it says, from the king's maidservant, from Naharta, jars of wine to Jerusalem. Innocuous. But the scroll was apparently plundered from a cave in Nahal Hever in the Judean desert near the Dead Sea by antiquity thieves years and years ago. It has been recovered and it has been analyzed. It has been dated. The date places Jerusalem under the control of Jews 1,300 years before Muhammad was born. It's interesting because the United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization, UNESCO, denied Israel's historic claim to Jerusalem in a vote just last year. No, 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 no. Never let science interfere with what you want to believe. I know it may sound strange, but homeschooling is under attack again. Apparently, our so-called public school system is almost completely unable to educate most of our children. But government officials in Norway have demanded that a homeschooling mother and father give up their passports if they want to be reunited with their 12-year-old son. WorldNet Daily reported last week that Norwegian police and social services workers chased down, tackled, and captured a 12-year-old boy. His offense was that he was being homeschooled. Here at home, a longtime homeschooling mom in South Dakota knew there were opponents of the legislative plan to provide homeschool students with access to certain public school options when she agreed to testify on behalf of the bill before the state legislature. Now she knows those opponents are juvenile delinquents. And this is because a box cutter blade was apparently embedded in her tire at the state capitol while she was testifying, so that as soon as she moved the vehicle, that blade would penetrate the tire and deflate. Supposed to be adults. Do you know how many volcanoes there are erupting around the world? Would you guess 5? Would you guess 10? Try 25. Many of them are in the Far East, but plenty are in Central and South America around the so-called Ring of Fire. You've heard of the Ring of Fire. You've probably seen pictures of it. Starts down at the tip of South America on their western shore and runs all the way up through the United States, around Alaska, over and down along the other side, Japan and Europe, and goes all the way down to Australia. People this week were killed in Egypt from the first snowfall in 112 years. In Yellowstone, scientists say a massive eruption could be 6,000 times more powerful than Washington State's Mount St. Helens. It erupted in 1980, killed 57 people, deposited ash in 11 different states and 5 Canadian provinces. If the volcano explodes, a climate shift could ensue, as the volcano would spew massive amounts of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Sulfur dioxide, which can form a sulfur aerosol that reflects and absorbs sunlight. If all that's not enough to worry about, there are 3 more volcanoes in California alone that have threat levels listed as very high: Mount Shasta, Lassen Volcanic Center, and Long Valley Volcanic Region. 3 more are listed at high threat levels: Clear Lake Volcanic Field, Medicine Lake Volcano, and Salton Buttes. And what does all this have to do with the end of the age and of Jesus' return? Absolutely nothing. Don't let people get you excited about this stuff. The catastrophic events anticipated by the book of the Revelation revolve around what God is doing at that time, not the natural order of things. God may very well use those things, but when you read about what's happening, it doesn't sound like anything earthly or natural. Be careful. I'm not going to tell you news, but I am going to say that the general public hates God. Are you shocked? You knew that. Facebook is our new social monitor. And Facebook hates the Bible. The specific issue that generates my commentary tonight surrounds a biblical passage, Leviticus 18, verse 22. Leviticus 18:22 condemns homosexuality in blatant, obvious, clear to be understood terms. It says, "Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind." Why? Because it's an abomination. An abomination in the Bible is a morally disgusting and abhorrent activity that is an affront to God. But now we live in a country where the freedom of speech is enshrined in our founding documents. So we can pretty much say whatever we want as long as it does not result in defaming other people or causing them harm in some way. This Bible verse offends many people today. Maybe it offends most people today. But we have laws that say that we can say stuff like this, that we can write stuff like this without fear of legal repercussion. But Facebook is a privately owned software program. And if the owners don't want to accept my postings or yours for any reason, they have that legal right. The problem, as is generally the case, is its own duplicity, its own inconsistency. Actor Ian McClellan is an example. He's admitted that when he stays in hotels and motels, he vandalizes the Gideon Bibles that are placed there in the various nightstands. Not content with leaving ideas with which he disagrees concealed in a drawer, he says he takes out those Bibles and rips out pages that contain certain passages from Leviticus. And the passage that annoys this homosexual the most is Leviticus 18:22. Christian minister and blogger Julio Severo comes along declaring that Facebook is punishing him for posting Leviticus 18:22 in Portuguese. He says, willing or not, Facebook treated Leviticus 18:22 directly as an attack on people based on their sexual orientation, based on their gender choice. That is, Facebook treated the Bible as a criminal book. Severo says he's on a 30-day ban from Facebook over the issue, and that Facebook waited exactly 5 years to notify him that his expose was offensive. He wonders what Facebook and others have against the Bible. I wonder what planet Severo lives on. Of course it's unfair. Isn't that the reason? Isn't that the purpose of the whole thing? The ungodly, the profane, the sophisticated, the progressives, they hate God. They won't all say it like that. But their lifestyle, their behavior, their language, their values screams it loud and clear. And Mr. Severo doesn't know this? Yeah, he does. He just won't accept the inconsistencies. Well, I have a message for Mr. Severo. One day, you will. Just as the early apostles and others accepted Rome's inconsistencies. It's not new. It's just new in America. At least most of us are seeing that way now. But it was this way 50 years ago. It was just not as much out in the open. The culture has shifted, but the technology allows us to see and to hear what's in the minds and hearts of just about everybody on the planet at any time, which means this whole thing is just now out where you can see it clearly. And the culture has shifted. Evil is now good, and good is now evil. Can you say 1984? Some of you young people may not know what I'm talking about. It's the title of a book. Look it up. Here's a shocker. A Christian Students Club at Harvard University has been placed on administrative probation for a year for following Christian ethics. What did they do? They pressured a female member of its leadership team to resign. Why? Well, she announced there was an assistant Bible course leader who was excited about a new relationship. Finally, she told others there was someone who makes her laugh, feel safe, and challenges her to be a better person. The problem? The assistant Bible course leader was excited about being in a dating relationship with another woman. Now it seems a Christian students organization that would require its leaders to follow basic Christian teachings has been judged offensive. That, according to college spokeswoman Aaron Goldman, who announced the move. Aaron is spelled like the male form, not Aaron, Aaron. Golden told the Crimson in an email, quote, after a thorough review and finding that HCFA had conducted itself in a manner grossly inconsistent with the expectations clearly outlined in the Office of Student Life Student Organization Resource and Policy Guide, the OSL has placed HCFA on a one-year administrative probation. Now, why would the school not expect a Christian students club to follow Christian ethics? Officials with the Family Research Council in Washington took after the college with criticism, saying colleges should be celebrating students with a purity standard, not punishing them. Yet that's exactly what Harvard University is doing to a Christian group on campus. Administrators have decided that living out the tenets of your faith will cost you. In this case, it will cost these students a year-long suspension. That's what's happening in our world as it spins through the cosmos. And tomorrow is a new week, and it starts all over again.